Hello, everyone. Apologies
Hello.
for being a little bit late. We had some slight technical difficulties, but we're all here now. I'm Ross, and welcome to another episode of Ask Dr. Pille. It's great to have everyone joining us today. And I'm not flying solo, of course. There's Dr. Pille, the man himself, here.
Hello, everyone.
It's always great to have you here. And today we've got something very special lined up. We're joined by someone whose work has shaped the sound of modern heavy metal music, a Grammy-winning producer and engineer who's collaborated with Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi, Judas Priest, and many more. Please welcome Mr. Mike Exeter. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Nice to have you here.
So tonight,
thank you.
Tonight, we're going to dive into Mike's approach to tone, production, and mixing, his work with Tony Iommi, insights into the Back to the Beginning show, and the techniques behind crafting powerful, emotional, unmistakable sound. We'll be breaking down.
Did you write
rigs.
this?
Oh, yeah, he's reading it.
Yeah. We'll be breaking down rigs, recording chains, studio philosophy, and of course, taking your questions live throughout the stream. With that, I'm going to hand over to Guillaume.
All right, so let's dive in. Thank you, Ross, for the introduction, and thank you, Mike, again for finding the time to come talk to us. That's really a great honor for us to be able to talk to you today. I know you've interacted with Ross quite a lot, but it's new to us, so I'm glad we were able to put that thing together. And we had, like Ross said, technical difficulties before the live stream, but we could have some more during the live stream.
We're bound to. I mean, if any of us disappear, we will be back.
Yes, we are always back, but we could have some issues. So Mike, my first question for you today. I mean, if you could introduce yourself. Of course, Ross said a few words, but I mean, would be good to know a little bit more about yourself, and especially how did you end up in that industry, and what got you started with it? Your initial start in the world of audio as a whole.
Okay, I started back in the dim and distant late 80s actually. My first love was listening to music and playing music. I was a piano player, keyboard player, and I always had some kind of affinity to listening to what other people did music-wise. My dad's a great influence on playing albums to me. The first two albums he introduced me to, well, three probably, were Tubular Bells, Dark Side of the Moon, and Journey to the Center of the Earth with Rick Wakeman. And it was just this thing of like, if you play keyboards, you might end up being able to do something like this. As I went through the 70s, learning about music, and in the early days of computers, there was always this thing of like, there's going to be a point where these two things converge. I don't know how, and I don't know when. I couldn't get into bands because keyboards were they were too heavy. You couldn't like just rock up with a guitar. You could do that with a guitar. You couldn't do it with a keyboard. So I was kind of just carrying on with my piano playing and learning about computers. And then there was this sort of fateful day where I was traveling into London, and we stopped at this bookshop, and there was a magazine called Recording Engineer Producer, and there was a whole discussion of Hugh Padgham and Phil Collins collaborating on a Howard Jones song. And that was my Bible. I was like, there is a job. Well, there used to be a job doing this. There isn't anymore. But there's a job doing this. There's these people that make these records. They're real people, and to put a face to Hugh Padgham was like, wow, this is amazing. So I started to look down the route of, well, if I can't be in a band, and I was getting a bit bored with classical piano lessons, there must be a route there. So I did 5 or 6 years working for my dad on computer controlled machine tools, learning robotics and DSP stuff and all that, which was great for the analytical side of systems. But eventually it was like, how do I get a job doing this? And around the late 80s, there was this very expensive keyboard called in various names, either the synclavier, the synclavier, or the synclav, whatever they called it. And I thought, I know how to get a job. I'll learn how to use that, and I'll be some like Trevor Horn's sidekick, not thinking Steve Lipson already had that gig. So I got in contact with New England Digital, and I said, how do I find out about this? And they had an office in the UK, and the guy there, and I wish I could find out who he was at the time, but he said, you've got to go to this place in Florida. They're the training center for New England Digital. So I went to Full Sail, and I did a worthless degree in audio engineering. But the point wasn't to do the degree. The point was to go and spend a year in Florida, because why not? So I did a degree, and I ended up out there 2 years. I got a extended visa to go and work at a studio in Rochester, where I started really learning how to be an engineer. And then the visas were getting ready to run out, and I thought, I don't want to fall foul of visa problems. So I moved back to my adopted city, just outside of Birmingham in the UK, because I was originally from London. And I just started looking around for work, and it, like many things that have gone on in my career, being prepared for when the thing happens that puts you in the right place at the right time. I got in contact with UB40, who coincidentally I'd gone and I'd contacted a couple of years earlier, and they didn't have any vacancies. I contacted them this time and said I was just looking for some freelance work while I checked around London. And they'd lost both of their engineers, one of whom had gone off to have a little solo career, a guy called Bitty McLean. And the other guy was doing front of house for the band on a 2-year world tour. So they had these 2 lovely studios, a 48-track 2 analog machine setup and a 24-track setup. Nobody to operate them, so I freelanced with them. And a year later, they just offered me the job. So I spent about 6 or 7 years there, including being head engineer there for a while. So
was it
really good.
Sorry, was it their own studio, private studio? Or
yeah, originally it was called the Abattoir, which is obviously like where they store dead animals after they've been slaughtered. And that was the studio they built in the 70s. They built it around some TAC and AMEC gear originally. And that really, the original studio was gorgeous, because there was this abandoned AMEC Angela in there, and nobody was using it because they built this other room. And I knew that the Angela was a great sounding console. So I said to the management, can we get this room running again? And I kind of made it my room for a couple of years. But they had that studio from early days, and that became their base. So Depp International was their internal record label, and the studios became Depp International Studios. But I think one of the interesting things, and we've never had it confirmed, is that we know that one of Ozzy Osbourne's first jobs when he was sort of leaving school was to work in an abattoir in this place called Digbeth, which is the place where this abattoir was. So I think somewhere in the dim and distant past, Ozzy used to sort of deal with dead animals in the same place that But yeah, it's interesting. So that got me into the business. I spent a good time in Rochester doing great work. I mean, I got to work on some really good sessions. But when I got over here, I was just like, right, I'm ready to go. And it set me up to go freelance back in 98, 99. And I haven't looked back. But it was there that I met Tony. It was just another strange coincidence. So,
well, how did that come about, Mike?
One of the few gigs I've ever turned down. I was doing quite a lot of stuff. We'd managed to put. Had we done the SSL by then? We hadn't. We were bringing both studios online, and we were starting to get some quite decent record label work, small label work, and we were the best studio in Birmingham. We were the only studio that had really put money in. We had like 48 channels of Dolby SR upstairs, 2 analog machines, 24 downstairs. This was like a full service facility. And a band called Cradle of Filth came onto the horizon, and their drummer loved being in Birmingham. He knew the scene there. It was the home of metal. And their record label said, well, we can definitely put you into this studio in Birmingham, but we'll need a producer. So they got in touch with the studio manager, and he says, well, you should talk to Mike because he's a great producer. Have a word with him. So I got sent a DAT tape of the demos of their album. And I took it home to listen to it because I was doing some wiring at home. And as it sounds really dramatic, but it was true. As I put the DAT tape on, these thunderclouds came over and lightning started happening, and this fucking row came on, which was Cradle of Filth demos. And I played it for about 30 seconds, and I just picked up the phone and went, no, no, definitely not. Absolutely not me at all. I'm not the person for this. So they worked it out. They still wanted to book the studio, and their manager was a lady called Faye Walven, and her husband was a guy called Kit Walven. Now, Kit was Tony Visconti's right-hand man when he built Good Earth in London, which is now Dean Street. Kit had done magnums on a storyteller's night in the abattoir. He was married to Cradle of Filth's manager. So she said, well, why don't we get Kit to do it? So I spoke to Kit and I said, well, look, we'll put an assistant on your session because he's really into this stuff and I really can't start. I think it's horrible. And I was really honest. And so this session started and it was great. And I have told this story many times, and I've even been on like Australian podcasts dispelling myths about the keyboard player. Keyboard player was brought in, new keyboard player to the group, and turned out he didn't have very good timing or technique. And so he was brought in because he looked great. And he was from Ireland. And I remember going into the control room one day, and there was Kit there hitting an octapad, trying to get triggers so he could create a click track to what was on tape so that he could quantize the keyboard players playing. And it just wasn't happening. So I got a knock on my door and he goes, you play keyboards, don't you? I went, yeah. He goes, I've had a word with the studio manager. He says, downstairs is free for about a month. If we do slave ADAT tapes and send them downstairs, can you orchestrate this album for me? Because it's a fucking disaster. So I spent a month orchestrating keyboards with a Kurzweil K2000 and a copy of Performer, synced to ADATs, and just having the time of my life with church organs and string sections and choral shit. And I suddenly got what it was all about. Take the vocals away, it's actually quite listenable.
Oh yeah, it's very symphonic.
And then you start, exactly, and you start to understand, actually, this is really cool. So that was my introduction. And what was really interesting was during that process, there is an end to this story. During that process, the assistant moved on to another project and it got to the mix stage. And I was in the upstairs room on the 48 track session. And Kit said to me, he said, are you okay just doing the bounce, you know, because we were like bouncing 5 tracks of toms down to a pair and all this kind of stuff because it was limited analog. So he said, are you all right carrying on for the afternoon? I've heard Tony Iommi is in his home studio above his garage and he's got Don Airy, Glenn Hughes and Dave Holland all up there. They're working on some demos. I want to see if we can get them in. So he fucks off for the afternoon and I'm carrying on doing this stuff. We get a call and Tony's going to come in and we're going to mix some of his stuff. And again, preparedness. We did a couple of mixes. Tony loved the studio. Kit was unavailable. He was going to work with a guy doing some stuff in Italy with Dario Mollo. And he had this guy, I can't remember, Steelheart singer, Mike Natievich. He was working on this album. And so he says, I might have lost this Iommi gig to you. I went, okay. And that was it. That was 95, so 30 years ago. I then got a call off Tony's manager saying, Tony'd like to do some more demos. Are you interested? and that was it. So I was shoved into a room with Dave Holland on drums, Glenn Hughes singing and playing bass, and Tony playing guitar. And being a keyboard player, I was in absolute awe because Don Airy was the mental case that did all the Rainbow stuff and wrote Mr. Crowley's intro and all that shit. So I was like, so that's how I met Tony, and we just hit it off. You know, it was just fun.
Oh, so you had,
and I didn't know that much about Black Sabbath.
So you had to go through black metal to get to Ione, which is unexpected.
Yeah, and it was really funny because you wouldn't have thought. What was really funny about this record, which actually ended up getting released as a project called the Depth Sessions, because it was a set of demos that were never meant to be released. So he got all this together with Glenn Hughes, and then that got ditched, and he went off and did his 2000 solo album where he had all the special guests. When he came back, the demos had been bootlegged, and we don't know how it happened, but there was a couple of Glenn Hughes' solo songs on the bootleg. So someone in Glenn's organisation had let a cassette go. And it was at that point, a couple of years later, that that shit was hip. All of this was on analog, and I left it, but I'd seen what was going to happen there. So I took all of the tapes that were important and kept them safe at home, because the road crew for UB40 were coming in and just chucking stuff. I got a phone call off Tony's manager saying, we never picked up the tapes. Any idea where they are? And I went, yeah, I've got them. He said, Tony's got a home studio. We work on Pro Tools. I said, I'm actually going in to do some transfers. Do you want me to transfer them for you? Went and re-met Tony, and we started fixing all the bits and pieces that he wasn't happy with. In the interim, there'd been a bit of a problem with Dave Holland, where he was accused of some sexual underage stuff. Don't think it was ever proved, but Tony wanted to distance himself, so we got a new drum parts done, and we released it officially, and then went into his next solo album, and then things started to roll, and suddenly I'm doing everything with Tony. So it was quite good being a thief.
Oh, you borrowed it. That's different.
I
borrowed it.
Safe.
Yeah,
I kept them safe.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But what's been amazing is it's been a great mentorship, because I was 24 when I met Tony. 23 probably. So I've sort of had my entire career mentored at the highest level.
That's
and
very cool. Really
put under pressure a lot as well. I'm actually only 20. That's why I've got this grey beard, you know.
I think it's your note about being prepared for when the opportunity presents itself. I think that's sage advice right there.
Yeah.
How did you prepare yourself for that?
Just by really, really caring. There's no reason to be lazy. Well, there's plenty of reasons you can be lazy, but you shouldn't. If you care enough about anything, I mean, that I have been told I'm 2 steps from being OCD. I'm actually a perfectionist, and that can lead down a slippery slope. But I don't think my family's all going to get hit by a car if I step on the cracks in the pavement. But I am a perfectionist, and I will stay as long as I feel it's necessary to get the job done. And that's the preparation. I think the main thing for me, it comes up a lot, is, you know, what do you think you can bring to younger bands? What's the difference between doing a cheap project and a huge major label artist? And it's like, there's no difference. But what you do is you recognize the importance of everything you do. It very quickly struck me after the first time something big was released. It doesn't matter if they all buy it. There's a fair chance that quite a lot of the people on the planet are going to hear what you've done. So you better not have left early to go for a pint, because the last thing you want is for a bad punch to have happened, or you wished you'd crossfaded something. And I think that's it. It's just giving a shit. Sorry, I do swear. I do apologise.
No,
That's okay.
We're not on the
X-rated.
BBC. We're good.
Fantastic. So,
Yeah.
Mike, you've alluded to for those people that don't know, you've worked on some pretty iconic heavy records.
Yeah.
If you were going to sum it up, what drives your production approach?
I always said it was Steely Dan quality with a rock attitude. I want that. I want everything to be clear and audible. I hate distortion when it's just being used to make something louder in a production capacity. If it's helping, great. If it's just we're going to squash the waveform into a sausage, it's not necessary, and that's laziness. So I want to get all this energy. I want hairs to go back on the back of your arms. I want excitement coming out of those speakers. I want people to be leaning in to listen to what you've done, but for it to be audible. And there's all these cliches. It's like, well, you don't need to limit it because you can get the audience to turn it up. It's like, it's not so much the loudness, it's having the dynamics. It's like, I've gone through some hell in a mental health situation, like 11 years ago was really bad. That was pressure and everything. So I understand about how psychologically things work. And one of the big things, I mean, it's Eastern philosophies as well, but this whole concept of yin and yang should drive everything. You cannot have loud without soft, quiet. You can't have dark without light. If you've got a flat sausage of audio where it's just all double kicks, triggers, and everything's as loud as everything else, there's no emotional roller coaster. You've got to, you can't just go, oh, brilliant, we've created the loudest record ever. You've got to make impact mean something. If you're sat in a quiet room and someone pops a balloon, you're going to crap yourself because it's all relative. So the yin and the yang is so important. So bringing dynamics in, creating contrast, I think, is really important. And that makes people listen. And I think there's an awful lot of people that could learn from not using compression.
But especially with modern tools helping you draw that big rectangle on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. It's nobody listens. It's really fun. This is why I have control surfaces. My screen is there. My speakers are there. I want to listen to the music without seeing anything. I can spend 95% of a mix never looking at that screen.
Yeah.
Because I map everything to Yukon. So I just sit and listen and make judgments based on it. And you learn that off the great old people that have been recording for 60 years. Generally, they're sat there with their eyes closed listening to what you're doing.
Yeah, but also they didn't have all the visualization stuff that you're right, it introduces a bias.
Yeah, it does.
And listening with your eyes, I mean, it can help detecting funny things.
Yes.
But I agree with you. But I believe that's the same thing that pretty much everyone experienced, the fact that they turned a knob that they thought was active and wasn't. Especially a compressor, since you mentioned it's easy to think you're hearing something when it's not, and that's where the screen can help sometimes, or the console.
Yeah, I think metering and I mean my little screen behind me has generally got it's just full of metering plugins because I want to see what's going on and I want to double check it. So, and I'm not frightened to solo, and I'm not frightened to go in and visually check on something at all. But ultimately, you've got to trust your hearing. And we all go through imposter stuff. I had a terrible time about a month ago. Nowhere I went sounded right. And it was because I was changing speaker systems in a couple of places, and I couldn't work out my point of reference. I was really struggling, and then it just clicked again with something. So we all go through it, and that's what reference tracks are good for.
Oh yeah. You know what? We play a little trick. So here, that's our demo room. Also, it's a meeting room that we have here. But we have always 2 or 3 different pairs of monitors.
Yeah.
Some more PA, some more studio.
Yeah.
And it's like midfield stuff mainly.
Yeah.
And we use that actually to demonstrate mainly to guitarists or bassists that what they use to listen to their stuff actually has a huge impact on the result, and that just changing those parameters actually put them in a different place. And that's something, of course, as an audio engineer, you have to know. That, I mean, listening to the stuff in a car or a different place, or trying your mix with the different monitors. But you know what? Most people actually don't know that.
No.
And they don't realize how the headphones they use influence what they're even playing. And it's always fun to look at their face when you switch from one monitor set to another, and they're like, is it the same music? But it's actually the same mix. I'm just playing the same track through different monitors. And I can understand when you're so used to the same stuff, like on my desk here, have some good old NS10s. I have a love-hate relationship with them. But they are very good, and with the original power amp that everybody hates. But I know how it sounds, and I know exactly what I can get out of it, and also what I can't. Which means I still use them. When I come here in the studio, it's like, oh, I'm listening to music again. That's so much better.
Well, I can't get a balance together when I'm sat between speakers. I have to go over to my little Oratones there. So they're next to each other. They're basically far enough away that they're mono, but I don't get that 3 dB down when you go into more, that whatever happens when you do mono. So I get a balance on those, and I do probably once I'm in the automating phase of a mix, I'm probably on those 80% of the time.
Yeah.
I don't need to hear what sonics are happening now. It's like, can I hear every individual instrument? And I think that's a massive part of it. And it is really interesting getting people to understand how things come across on different mixes. I mentor students at degree and master's level, and none of them come in with reference tracks. And I'll play them a mix by Andy Wallace, because I like to give myself a challenge. Like, let's see if we can match Andy Wallace. And you go, listen to this guitar solo. Tell me why that guitar solo sounds the same on all those different monitors. I haven't worked it out yet. The guy's a fucking magician. But it's like, it's perfect on all the monitors. And it's just, there's something psychoacoustic going on. I'm not going to overanalyze it, but there's a guy that knows how to make things work across that compromise across many things. But and again, with compression, the other thing that I think people get seriously wrong is high pass filtering. I think we never used to have filters on consoles. We used to turn the bass down. So stop high pass filtering everything. Your speakers will do that. My philosophy is, if you give find a mix where people have high pass filtered the kick, the snare, the bass guitar, all the overhead, the main guitars, and they've gone up to these predetermined studio myths of like, oh, there's nothing useful under 120 hertz on a guitar, all this bullshit. Right, sounds fucking amazing on small speakers. Put it through a club PA and there's nothing. However, if you leave that stuff there, you have to be careful. I'll high pass a kick drum at 20 after I've given a bit of a boost. But generally, there is useful stuff. Turn it down. Don't just indiscriminately destroy it. Turn it down, see if that happens. Now, I guarantee if you've got a good balance and it sounds kind of full, your laptop speakers, your in-ears, your radio, your Pure, all of these things will still play that mix sounding beautifully, but their internal crossovers will stop the bottom end from going. If you put too much in, obviously it's going to distort, but they will determine the lowest frequency they play back. When you get it in a club or on a big PA or full range massive ATCs or PMCs, you'll be able to hear that bass. It's going to sound warm. It'll sound full. And I think that's the problem. I think too many people try to follow all of these internet myths about how to make your mix sound tighter. And it's just rubbish. You need bottom end in your mix. One of the greatest mixes I've heard, and I've only discovered it recently, is the Alice in Chains album that came out, the first album after Lane Staley died, produced by Nick Raskulinez and mixed by Mike Shipley. And it's one of the biggest sounding records of the time. It's about, I don't know, 15, 20 years old, but it's heavy. The bottom end on the toms, everything about it sounds incredible. It's detailed and it sounds great on every speaker system. So that's my current reference. I can't remember the name of the album. I should try to find it. But it's absolutely stunning. And I think those are the things that you have to be aware of. It's like you've got to trust that you've got to trust that your references are always going to be that reference. So if you walk in and you go, brilliant, that's my reference for the day, and then later in the day your mix isn't sounding like the reference, but you think your mix is awesome, then you better go back to that reference because you thought it was the right thing earlier in the day. Recalibrate. Don't fool yourself. And Massenberg, George Massenberg, who's sort of my hero, he's like, just be truthful. If you're going to try and match something, be truthful. It's called Black Gives Way to Blue, Alice in Chains, the album. It's got like a heart on the front of it. It's brilliant. That's a good reference. That's how heavy rock should sound to me. It shouldn't be this noise. And I'll segue into the two note thing because this is the first time on that back to the beginning thing. When we use the Torpedo, the Reload 2, I was able to put impulse responses in there that people were going, holy shit, where did all that bottom end come from? But we'll get back to that.
I've got a picture. I'm gonna share a picture, yeah. This is
gonna fuck the call up, isn't it?
Yeah, probably will destroy like AWS or Cloudflare or someone like that. Half of the internet will go dark when we load the picture.
Will it let me share the picture? No.
Do you know what you should say though, Ross? The technology's beating you. Just say, "Don't stop me now."
Oh, come on, stop with that. Okay, the mustache is gone at the end of the month. Okay, sorry.
Every time we've been able to, we've been dropping in a Queen reference. Are you feeling under pressure, Ross?
Yeah, for some reason,
definitely under pressure.
I want to break
Just
free.
show your phone screen on the camera.
How's that going there, Ross?
Let's go full analog with did you print the picture?
He's got someone up there doing a painting.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Now I will blur the sun.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, so the beauty of that was guitar amps sound big. Guitar amps have got some bottom end to them when you're stood 25 feet away from them. When you're right up against them, they sound really you get a bit of a feeling from them, but they're really harsh. If you get in the cone of death, they sound vile. The beauty of using this technology is that it enabled us to go, well, actually, you know what? What do we do to get a great guitar sound in the studio? We use multiple microphones. We spend time to get phasing right. We use the correct microphones. We choose balances and we go, this is what this amp should sound like. And the guitarist in the control room, he'll go, oh my God, that sounds just like it. It feels out there. And it's taken 3 microphones to get there and these micro movements of stuff. So by capturing into the Opus, or the Opie, as we found out, because we had two of them, I was able to give front of house monitors and broadcast a studio guitar sound that was coming from those amps that Tony heard, going, holy shit, this sounds incredible. That's brilliant. That's just what I hear on stage when I stand 20 feet from my amps. But that's not what a 57 sounds like close up when a roadie has kicked it off. You know, I mean, this is the problem. So everybody that heard his guitar, including a very notorious player from a band that you are the lead singer of, Guillaume, he was in the audience, and he said, I've never heard Tony's guitar sound that good.
Oh, wow.
And and we've lost Ross because he's busy trying not to get fired.
Yeah, you barely mentioned Brian May. He was gone. Oh, no, he's back.
I'm back.
But he was like, that sounded incredible. How did you get that sound? And it's like, it was because we worked hard. Again, back to the ethics of, or the ethos of, don't stop.
Oh, I won't stop you now.
But don't stop just because you think we're nearly there. It's a good sound. Can we improve it? And as soon as the monitor and front of house guys heard the outputs of these, they were like, shit, this is incredible. So
Mike, I'm sorry, I have a question because it's kind of unusual what you were trying to do, which is, if I understand correctly, to get more of a room sound or a player sound, if that makes sense, like standing a little bit away.
It was more, I think what it is microphones don't pick up what we hear at all. Microphones, when people go, it's just like you're taking a photograph of the sound. You're snapshotting the sound. I equate it to a photographer or a camera takes a picture of the lunar landscape. A microphone goes to the lunar landscape and picks up a piece of lunar dust. Because the microphone's only taking that one little point in space where all of these bits of energy are flowing around. So to get a microphone to hear what we feel, we're hearing, we're feeling, we're sensing with our entire body what a 4x12 sounds like. If you put a microphone back here, it doesn't sound anything like what we perceive. And you move it half an inch and it sounds even worse, but it's also picking up all this other stuff that we tune out. So what I'm trying to do is capture the full range of the cab that you feel from 25 feet away, but not have to have it 25 feet away where you just get all of this ambience. So the idea is to get the combination of a 121, a 57, and a 421 or a 4033. You get all these things together and you create that impulse response that then, due to the ability of the Opus and the reactive load, is to be able to give it to a guitarist and go, well, that's what your amp sounds like in the studio. We brought that to the stage. It's live. There's no latency. It reacts because the speaker emulation in it is amazing, apparently, to play to. I'm not a guitarist. I don't know any of this stuff. But it feels like a speaker. You know, you've got someone as sensitive as Tony who's like, this feels great. This thing's amazing. We took it a couple of weeks later. We took it down to Gibson Garage so he could turn the amp down in the little presentation he was doing. So he was able to take his 4x12 out for a change and actually turn it down and use it in a room. And he goes, it still sounds like me. And I think that's the real deal with guitarists. They're fussy fuckers, aren't they? But
I mean, everybody loves to be loud, right? I mean, I started playing keyboard before I moved to guitar, and I don't know, Mike, if you got to play on like a church organ, but like big stuff with the big pipes. I mean, that like physical sensation you get playing those. And to me, actually, even if you would need a wall of 4x12 just to get close to that. But to translate that into a recording that's the challenge, because like you said, the microphone is just taking a tiny part of it.
Yeah.
And then as a sound engineer, you need to do something with it.
Yeah.
But you know, it's you lost. Like at that point, taking the sound, you're already lost. So you're just trying to make up for it and to compensate for it. But the guitarists, they will want that sensation. They will want to have that massive sound that we know is, I mean, just how people listen to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we mentioned the monitors, but not everyone has monitors like that. You usually have some like mono tiny speaker or like AirPods. I mean, and that's the real challenge for even for us designing product. Very often we have to tell the people, well, what you're listening to is not a screaming 4x12 like 20 feet away from you. It's actually a recording with a mic of that. So to get to that sensation, usually we try to recommend to actually use good monitors or good headphones, like as a first step. That gets you a little bit closer to the stuff. That's why we have also like small PA speakers with 12 inches, because it gets you a little bit closer to what a guitar cabinet is. But there is limits to like physical limits to the magic we can do with that. Like if you don't listen with proper monitors, proper speakers, well, you will always miss something, like the physical sensation, your bones. I mean, what the many guitarists mention that they kind of feel the cabinet is pushing air, which is it's doing.
Yeah.
It's the vibration you get through your body. I mean, it's. I was curious about. I'm sure Ross has a ton of questions, but I would do mine first. I'm curious towards how you built your IR. So you actually captured something. How did you do that?
No, in this case, it was actually quite interesting because thankfully people take photographs. Back in the old days, we didn't have phones that took photos very well, but I stumbled across. There's always arguments about when something happened, because people have addled memories in the rock and roll business for some reason. So during the making of the last album, the 13 album back in 2011, Tony was already going through a phase of, he wasn't enjoying the Laney amp that he had. It was basically a badged version of his GH100, of their GH100, and it was, I didn't like it. I thought it didn't have the character. He was always asking for more sustain. It was getting more and more crushed at the front end, or all this horrible stuff was happening. And it actually goes back a couple of years earlier when we worked with Dio on The Devil You Know. He suggested Tony tried some Engel stuff. And although that didn't work out, we actually did that album on Engel. And it showed him that there was a different way of making amps. And it was getting more to the sound that he liked, this staged front end. So by the time we went through that, we started working on songwriting for 13. And Eddie Van Halen said to Tony, "You got to try my amp," which was the 5150 Mark III. And so he arranged for some to be sent up, and instantly we fell in love with what they were capable of. And we put one of his cabs in the amp room, the cab room. And being lazy for probably only about the second time in my life, when Laney made the TI-100, which is the one that was in those photos you showed, when they made that for Tony, I really couldn't be bothered to take the EVH amp out, a cab, because it was like, well, it's a fucking cab. What difference does a cab make? And turned out that because of the speakers in it, and I think they're 25 watt Celestians, whatever they were, they just sounded fantastic in the studio, because they weren't full of headroom. They were really saturating what was coming out of that amp perfectly. They were controlling it. They were smooth. And so years goes by. He stopped using the amp. He sold all his amps, and he went over for the final tour. He went back to the 50-year-old LA 100s, the BLs, and proceeded on the entire last tour to be chasing a sound, and it just wasn't right, and he had to have all this front end stuff. So we got back probably about 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. He got asked to guest with the Hollywood Vampires in Birmingham. And he said, "Oh God, I haven't played since 2017. What are we going to use?" And I said, "TI-100. best amp you ever had? And he said, yeah, but it's really noisy. I went, no, it's not. I said, it might have been because of the rig and all the early stages of LED lighting and video walls, but I said that amp is not noisy. So we fired him up over at Fly By Night Studios, and the LA 100 didn't get a look in. He played with the TI 100 for about an hour, just loving it again. And I know when he's enjoying it because of the songs he plays. If he goes into Lonely Is the Word from Heaven and Hell, that he's in a happy place. So he did that. I was like, yeah, he's enjoying this. LA 100 got switched on, and it was like me saying no to Cradle of Filth. It was like, no, it just wasn't him. So we used that amp, I think it was on 4 on the gain and the output volume. And Joe Perry asked if it could be turned down because it was too loud. So Tony was pleased. Anyway, they did that gig, and that was all good. But I was trying stuff when I first started to use the Torpedo Studio, the first reload. I thought, I'm not getting what this is. So I ended up going back through old photos and realised that the cab we'd always used with the TR100 was this EVH cab.
Oh, wow.
And so I was going to try and get hold of one, and then someone said go on to the Celestion website. So I bought their EVH pack, loaded it in, and it was like, oh, this is more like it. Then when we got the Reload 2 just before the gig, it was like it had taken on a new life. It was so much better. I actually think I'm pointing at it because it's down there, but I think the old one had developed a fault, so it was weeding out the sound a bit. And Two Notes are really crap at fixing things, so it hasn't done that yet.
Well, I mean, you know the new Reload,
yeah,
Reload 2 is an entirely new design. Like we just
so good.
Yeah, we just.
Do you know the beauty of it is having the sort of the depth and the presence controls on the front. That's awesome. Just being able to do little things like that have made it like I am taking out bottom end out of these IRs now because there is so much of it. But in answer to the question, I just put all of the Celestion IRs into banks because they're static IRs, and just went, kind of sound do we need now in the studio? When he goes to do a solo, I'll choose some of the thinner or brighter IRs. What I want to do, and what we've been talking about, Ross and I, is to do some Dyne IRs of some of these rigs, because to be able to move those microphones around is so useful. I mean, from my point of view, there's all these wankers out there that go on about converters and preamps. Moving a microphone half an inch will make more difference to the sound than 20 grand's worth of converter difference.
You know what? I think there are so many things in the studio, so many devices in the studio that will have a massive impact on the sound. That fighting over cables, converters, clocks. I mean, sure. I mean, all of that stuff matters, and you need to have at least a certain level of quality for those devices. I'm not saying you can buy anything on Temu and just have it sound like $1 million studio. No. Of course not. But like you say, and that's, you know what, that's something I discovered developing the very first Torpedo devices. Two things. Yes, moving the mic has maybe not as much impact as changing the mic for a different model, but it's huge. Yeah. And also the other thing is that having the same speaker in 2 different enclosures have a massive impact. And the second one, the first one I had experience with, but the second one, since there are very few people who actually go into a warehouse and try 50 different cabinets before picking one, right? I mean, very few people can do that. And actually very few stores, even 25 years ago, had that many stuff in store. And even backliner companies, they don't have that many different cabinets you can try. So when I was doing captures initially, and I was trying those different, like, you know, the V30. I mean, I
Yeah.
was in the let's say mid 90s. Everybody was playing on that. So I had, I don't know how many different cabinets with the same V30 in them, and the UK ones, the other models. And I was like, how is it possible that Wagner cabinet sounds so different from that Mesa, from that Orange, and they all have the actual same speakers in them? So the box, because of its volume and the material they're using, or even how insulated inside they are, it's such a difference. So after that, after realizing all that, I was like, you know what, the cable and the letters, I mean, sure, I mean, they have a difference. There is a difference, but you know
There
what? I
is.
knocked that microphone a little, and it's 200% more important to the mix.
Well, even just a single microphone on a box is like, you know, you move it around and you're like, holy shit. And the resonances that happen, because that's what we kind of pick up on. I think it's interesting going into room designs and listening and watching people do like sweeps and paying no attention to waterfalls. You know, waterfall plots tell you what's happening over time.
Yeah.
And that's resonances. And, you know, we spend a lot of time trying to dial out these horrible resonances. And it's like, yeah, maybe just move the microphone, move the cabinet in the room, or change the cabinet. And that's the big thing. It's like there are so many variables. Yes, and what's great is you can get guitarists involved in that shit because they understand it. And I'm not being nasty to guitarists, but it's fun for them to stand in front and go, "Oh, that made a difference."
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a technique which I stole from. I didn't steal it. I mean, Andy Sneap's brilliant. He's a lovely guy. And the first time I ever worked with him, we were on tape, and it was the first time I'd ever seen someone do the let's record about 4 bars on this speaker. Let's record 4 bars on this speaker. Let's record 4 bars on that. And he went through every speaker in the room, and then he got the guitarist in the control room to go between and choose the speaker he liked the most. And I think the psychology, it's easier now because reamping is something we're kitted out for. So it's like, yeah, just play a riff and we'll send the same signal again and again, and then we can really work it out. On tape, it was a little bit like more hit and miss. There's usually a standout, bad or really good speaker. Yeah. Even on brand new cabs, there's always one. And again, it's position in the room. It might be reacting with the floor. It might be reflect. There's all these things that can happen. And I don't think people realize that even a 57 that far from a cab will still pick up stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And it will, out of phase, will create problems. Anyway, so you do this thing. The psychological impact of that for a guitarist is they're no longer in the room with their speaker. They've come into my world, and they're now making a decision based on what they're hearing. It's the yin and the yang. They're now in comparison mode because they never go, that doesn't sound like it does out there. They go, oh, that one sounds better than that one. We've completely removed the process of, I can't make any of this sound like your cab.
Yeah.
But we can make it sound as good as possible coming through my speakers and therefore in context with the rest of the mix. Bring them into that process and you've won them over because you give a shit and you've shown them that they're part of the process.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you broke the relationship they have with the physical presence of the device they used to.
Exactly. And they trust you after that. So then you can go, great, now I'm going to stick a Captor X in and never fucking touch the microphone again because I've got way more control.
It's a good job we're recording this.
Never done that, ever.
So I've got a quick question, jumping back
I wonder when you were going to earn your money.
Yeah, jumping back to the beginning. How did, what was your, well, I know, but I'm not sure that everyone will know. What other stuff were you doing at the Back to the Beginning gig, apart from, you know, helping Tony specify his rig?
So I introduced myself to everybody that asked as the cheerleader. I was probably, apart from Greg Price, who was in charge of audio for the festival, he's worked with Sabbath and Ozzy for many, many years, decades, as front of house. He's also now front of house for Metallica, has been for a few years. So Greg and I have this relationship going back, where we worked on the previous final gig by Black Sabbath back in 2017. We did the cinema and album mix for that together. He brought that. This is what they sound like live, and I brought it into the studio, and we worked on it and got through that. So we collaborated really well. He brought me on very early. He and I are the only two people that had probably worked with all four members of the band in a technical capacity, from a quality control oversight point of view. We did rehearsals at a studio in Northampton, band rehearsals to start with. That's where we went back in 2011 when Bill, Tony, Geezer and Ozzy were together doing some writing and jamming for the 13 album. So it was the scene of the crime. The five of us had been there before. So I was there as that person that in the familiar place. I've worked on a couple, 3 or 4 albums with Geezer and Tony, one with Ozzy. Still never made an album with Bill because he's always gone by the time that happens. But I was the person that was most familiar. So I dropped into the role of, if Tony's happy and Geezer will be happy, Ozzy will be happy, they're happy, Bill will be happy. And so from the top down, because Tony is kind of like, it falls apart if he falls apart. He's the quality control of the band, no doubt. So if he's happy and he knows everything's been taken care of, and he can look over and see that I'm taking care of all the stuff that needs to be taken care of, everybody will be fine. So I was initially brought in to document and keep them happy in rehearsal and liaise between various people, go through the production rehearsals where they started to get the full rigs together, monitors, front of house, broadcast. And then during the event, I was in the mobile truck with Ollie Nesham from Red TX, he's in charge of the broadcast audio for Mercury. I was there to be the guy that knew how to mix Ozzy and Sabbath. So I did the live stream with him. And it was a few weeks back now, but we've done the cinema mixes, which are in approval. We've done the stereos. I think the dub is happening soon, which is when they'll put it into Atmos and everything. But I'm there as I was really pleased. I got an email from Rudy Sarzo, who was one of Ozzy's. He was in the original Blizzard of Oz with Randy Rhoads. Rudy sent me a thing. He did a thing for a client of mine once, and he said, "I love what you've done with Sabbath. You are the gatekeeper of the crypt of all things Sabbath."
Oh, man.
And I took that really seriously coming from him. But that was my role. It was to be QC and care and have fun. And I mean, it's horribly sad, but I can say I had my fingers on the faders the last time Ozzy did Mr. Crowley. And that goes full circle back to seeing Ozzy in 1984 when Don Airey was in his band playing Mr. Crowley on that tour. And just this whole thing of like the big kid in the candy store in tears and giggling because you're looking up on screen and seeing Ozzy putting his heart and soul into this thing. So it's the giving a shit thing again. My role was to care and really make sure that nobody looked stupid and that it sounded incredible. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing it in the cinema. That's something I'm definitely going to do. I'd be interested to hear that.
Yeah, we've just been able to bring out everything. I mean, it's like, I remember when I did the 2017 mix, I was in the middle of doing the Judas Priest album with Sneap, and I took him up a rough mix. He goes, "Fucking hell, you said it was ambient." He said, "I'd have never mixed it like that." But it's like, but you're in a gig. It's not a record. It's Villa Park, which is a stadium. Ozzy's vocals are bouncing around this. You know what a stadium gig sounds like. It doesn't sound like a club. It's this monstrous event. It's an incredible in Atmos.
Yeah, I bet.
So that's what you do. You go, where do we push this? How far do we make this ambience? You know, I want people to feel like they're there. The photography is stunning. I mean, I was lucky they sent me a rough cut to have when we were doing the mix, because it's very helpful seeing crowd reactions and just pushing little things. And is this why are the crowd doing something? It's because Ozzy's just done a there, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's really important. Just all the little automation moves to make it feel like you're living this. I mean, some of the footage is just amazing. The tears from grown men during that gig. It's brilliant. It's so emotional. It's brilliant. And I did the sort of the stereo with Greg. He flew over. We did it a couple of weeks after Ozzy died. So it was like seeing him back on stage.
Yeah.
We were like, this is awesome. You know, there was no sadness. It was like he sang his arse off for himself and for the crowd. It was brilliant. So I was really amazed to be involved in it. And it's a huge thing and so much fun. The music's so good as well, you know.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, I think we're nearing the hour mark. 10 minutes after we normally should have started. Again, factors outside of our control, viewers.
Yeah.
I've got one question that I'm sure our audience would like to know. If you were to give one piece of advice to anyone looking to get into, and I'm gonna pin you down on this one, Mike. One piece of advice for anyone looking to get into the world of recording and producing, what would it be?
Don't.
Oh, come on! Look, it crashed Ross's camera. No.
Grow a moustache like Guillaume.
Oh yeah,
and front a band. It's a really tough one, actually. Because I mentor. I mentioned it earlier. I do a lot of mentoring, and the world of the recording studio has changed immensely since I started. We used to get internships. We used to get work experience. Studios existed. There's a dumbing down of the audio industry that's gone on. Huge amount of dumbing down. It's a double-edged sword. I will answer the question, but it has to be prefaced. There's a double-edged sword with technology. It puts it in the hands of people that might not necessarily deserve it. Without technology being as accessible as it is, you wouldn't get someone as talented as Billie Eilish coming through. But you also, along with that, get 95% of other utter shit coming through, where nobody knows why they're doing stuff. They don't know. They think technology buys them into greatness. They're looking for instant gratification. So there's a guy called Simon Sinek who did this brilliant TED talk. His entire thing is start with why. What is the reason I am doing something? What's the reason I'm reaching for this tool? What's the reason I'm using this piece of software? All of this stuff is, what is my end goal? Why? It can just be because I want it. I fancy buying a toy. But it's like, if I've got a hammer drill and a cordless screwdriver, there's got to be a reason I'm using one or the other. And I'd like to know which one will do the job well. It's exactly the same with anything. And it is cliche central. These are all just tools. You've got to know why you're doing it. Hence the compression thing earlier. I always get asked, oh, should I be compressing that? I don't know. Why do you want to compress it? I want to make it louder. Well, they don't fucking compress it. Turn it up. It's all this stuff, you know, and I can say that because it's like, I'm not nasty to people at all, but I do it with humor. And I'm like, let me show you the best way of making this louder. And I push a fader up and then I automate it, because it's like you get to the chorus and they're like, oh, now I can't hear the vocal. Shall I compress it? I'm like, no, turn it up, automate it. This is what it's all about. So there's this massive need to learn. Now, I was lucky 35 years ago. There were routes into the industry where people could be mentored. And mentorship is huge. It's like apprenticeships. Learning on the job is so important. I've got a brilliant assistant, Jaden, who she went to one of the colleges over here and she turned up. She just kept turning up. Even through COVID, she was there every time, even when she didn't need to be. And just before she graduated, I said, do you fancy coming and doing a session? And she's been with me 4.5 years now because she gave a shit. And she said the usual thing, which is a trope, it's like, I learned more in the first afternoon working with you than I learned in 3 years at college.
Yeah.
So it's tough. No, I haven't got any positions before anybody else. No, you can't come and shadow. There's no, the inner sanctum doesn't allow her. She doesn't come to most of my Tony sessions because we do it at his studio. The whole point is the route into audio has changed so much. If you want to be a recording engineer or a record producer. Now, if you like engineering audio and being around music, there's another route. You can go and do live sound. Yeah. And actually, live sound is awesome and broadcast sound is awesome. And it's really well paid, way better than the recording industry. It's the same techniques. Everything about it's just more fun. I loved being in that mobile truck for 2 days. I was like, this is brilliant, except, there's probably 1 million people listening to what I'm doing. Shit. But it's great. And also, I've done live sound, and it's like the moment passes and you just concentrate. There's a thing about getting into the industry. You don't need to learn how to do any of this. You just have to learn to be a person that can talk, know your place in the room, know how to read a room, and be a good person all around and be really willing. We'll find you out if you're an arsehole pretty quickly. If you're unteachable, you're not going to be anywhere near me. You don't need to know much about anything. It's just how to follow some, some direction. But I do think there are so many roles available where you can cut your teeth on doing live sound for bands, trying to get in with broadcast, doing video, podcasting, any of that stuff, editing. You need clients. You need to develop this portfolio career, as they call it in education. You can't just do one thing. Those jobs don't exist. The only way you can get into a big studio is probably doing the Tonmeister course and hoping that Abbey Road or Peter Gabriel, Real World, is going to take you on. The jobs aren't out there. It's really sad. But it doesn't mean that if you're into music, you can't kind of integrate yourself with it. Because one of the most frightening things for me when I first started mentoring was the realization that some of these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids were fucking brilliant. And it's like, what on earth can I teach them? And I realized I could teach them the why and guide them through the thought process of doing stuff. And also I had to dump everything about engineering from the importance part of it because they didn't care. They just wanted to make their music. So there's this massive crossover, like Phineas and Billie Eilish, is like they don't need a big studio to make global records. They need an outlet for their creativity. And that's the big thing for me. That's one of the great things that technology has given us. It's given us the ability to sit in a room with an amp and a reactive load and an IR loader and make these incredible sounds alongside superior drummer. And suddenly you've got the greatest recording studio in the world. Are your songs great? If they are, they'll make it out there. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it. So that's why I'm lucky I produce and mix, because there are things. I mean, I think it was Spirit Box, no live drums on their albums. It's all twin track. Yeah, I think it's Tesseract only did their latest album during lockdown. It's the first time they've used their drummer on the album because it's actually probably more cost effective to the project to get him to program MIDI and not waste weeks in a studio perfecting it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you have to sort of step back and go, okay, every situation's got its own reason, but it's the why. It's like if these artists don't have the budget, they're going to still find a way of doing it, and they're going to spend it in the right place. And that's where just I guess getting in and finding out what you're good at. It's difficult. You can't even read album credits anymore. I guess they're coming back with various of the streaming platforms. Yeah. They are showing who does what. Yeah. I mean, Wikipedia is the book of lies, but thank God it's there because you can find out who did something. Because that's how I found out. It was like, who the fuck's Alan Parsons? What did he do? What's that all about? Chris Thomas, But you eventually, you're like, I want to be him. And so it's really important. It's like, and that's what you have to fight for as well. I'm really going down a rabbit hole here, but fight for credit. It's a really different business. But going to things, being part of the business is important. I'm in the Midlands of the UK. It's 100 miles north of London. And there are a lot of people who think London is Hades and we should never go near there. And they try to do everything in spite of the big metropolis, the evil metropolis. And I go down to London and see all my mates and nobody's fighting for jobs. They're all just getting on and they're recommending each other. And I think this is the part of immersing yourself in the business you want to be part of. Yeah. And there are, thankfully, since COVID blipped, after the Thanos snap, we managed to get a live industry back. Even that's been reduced a bit, but there are so many jobs in live music. And I tell you what, the camaraderie and teamwork in live, that'll find you out if you're going to be an arsehole.
Oh, yeah.
People won't work with you.
Oh, no, you will not set foot in a tour bus.
No.
4 weeks.
Exactly. So I think it's really tough. I think recording, I don't even really recording schools anymore, but I think technical courses, production courses, they have their place. But one has to really watch how much is promised to the students. Because it can be quite devastating to get to like month 11 of year 3 to realize that nobody's helped you think about getting a job.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
I mean, that's because there is an artistic side to the job. Yeah. The minute you touch that type of things, you are immersed in the human nature.
Yeah, totally.
That makes sense. And which means you need networking. You need to go and hassle people if you want to get anything back, because nobody's going to give you something. I mean, especially since it's a small industry. It was a small industry when you started.
Yeah,
it's even smaller today.
Yeah,
and the budgets are smaller to record an album. Everything needs to be extremely cost effective. Plus, like you said, we have tools nowadays that you can use at home and still get an amazing result out of.
Yeah.
So you need to be bold. You need to be, you need to catch it when it comes. I mean, it's pretty brutal. But I mean, there is even a worse job, which is being the artist himself.
Yeah. God, can you imagine having to deal with A&R people? I mean, this is another thing. There's a young band that they're only 16, 17-year-olds. We had to stop doing little writing sessions because they had to do their exams. I mean, it's brilliant. But these young lads, I knew that there's 4 dads, and they're their roadies and mentors and all this. But they're really good. A couple of the guys in the band have toured with the School of Rock live show as on-stage musicians. They're really great little band, and their influences are fucking brilliant because it's everything from Pink Floyd, Guns N' Roses, Queen, Def Leppard, Tool, and really heavy shit on top of that. And I'm like, this is incredible. They're just like, they're absorbing music. And I started working with them, and I said to their dads, I said, you know, really honestly, they're not ready for the studio. We got to find out who they are. Now, a label would make them pick a thing, and they would probably destroy who they are. And I'm not saying that they're going to have a world-shattering career, but they've got more of a chance doing it being authentically themselves and being guided. And I've had lots of chats with very, very close friends in business about putting labels together to develop young acts again, because they deserve it. You know, it's missing. These people have got to find out what they are. There's an awful lot of pressure put on youngsters to be something that they haven't really developed into. I've only just found out who I am, and I'm 58. You know, I'm still actually searching. I didn't know what I wanted even at the age of 24 when I went to America. I don't know. I thought I might become a video, not a video, like a sound designer, or, you know, video post audio guy. I just happen to enjoy being in the studio, recording bands.
Yeah, and there is something about the people you meet, right? I mean, that's why I'm very often saying you need to get out and meet people.
Yeah.
Of course, you can do a lot of that online.
Yeah.
But I'm old enough to still value the like shaking hands part of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so actually the you went out and you didn't know what you would get. I guess you had an idea, but that idea gets molded by the encounters, like people who start mentoring you if you're lucky enough to find those people. And but again, it doesn't happen if you don't go out. It doesn't happen if you don't kickstart it, because nobody will do it for you most of the time, unless you're the son of someone, right?
Yes. Yeah, and you know, there is an awful lot of that goes on. I mean, there's some studios that have been built by people that didn't work for it, and they're obvious because they don't know what serving a client is all about.
Yeah.
They think their studio is all about the gear, and I tell you what, it's the last thing anybody I work with looks at. They look at what instruments are around the room. They look at the space. I do it. I go into studios and I'm like, I could make a record here. This looks like a nice place to hang for a week.
Yeah.
Now what gear have you got? Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, that's fine. That'll work. You know, and I think that's the important thing. I think any of us, it's really funny. I keep going back to the live world, because I think anytime I've been lucky enough to be involved in any big production live, you know, I've done records for live gigs and sat by front of house, and I always ask, you know, what's your favorite console? And sometimes it's the one they're operating. Other times they'll go, no, I really like the SSL, or I really like the Avid. Why aren't you using it? Oh, the production kind of wanted this. I'm fine. They'll do the same thing. Some of them do it differently. I'm trying to work out, is that a Studer or a Soundcraft behind you? Is that a Vista?
Oh, it's a Soundcraft. It's a live. It's a VI 4000.
Yeah, I love those. That is a brilliant console for dialing in shit.
Yes, it's very practical, except I had to design a reamp session for some musicians who actually went to do reamping things, because the part you don't see have like 24 amps there on the wall. And the reamp stuff wasn't working, and I was like, oh, how do I have the MADI stuff? And I was trying to remember how to route the actual physical input-outputs to the MADI, then back to the console, and it took me half a day to remember where the menus were. And of course, it's very well designed, so when you figure out one, you know everything. But it took me half a day though with the manual, like, okay, how do you do that?
But you know what? What's incredible though, you see, is like Ollie in the Red TX truck, he had a Studer Vista. So Studer Vista, same Vistonics technology. And he said, what faders do you want where? And I said, well, give me Zach and give me I can't remember the bass player, Alice in Chains bass player, Mike Inez. Give me Zach and Mike and give me a VCA for the drums. And I'll just play with those. And he goes over and there's Windows 2000 running on the screen. And he swipes across these channels and he goes, "Boom, there you go." And I went, fuck me, that would have taken half a day on an SSL. And I've used the SSL. I've used the System T as well. They're an amazing sounding console. But I was with this guy, I wish I could remember his name. It was at YouTube Space in London. And he goes, a South African guy. He goes, "I'm here to sort whatever you need." I went, "Okay, so give me 5 cents for the vocals. And I want this on each one of them." And he's like tapping away and he goes, "Yeah, I'll be with you in about 10 minutes. And he's like literally having to do all this shit. He goes, "This is one of the worst fucking interfaces I've ever come across." But once he set it up, it was like, "Oh, this is amazing. That's so easy." But it's that aspect of it. It's like, I didn't want to know that. I didn't want to deal with any of that. I could have operated the Studer straight off. Now, I'm a bit biased with Avid, so I can use the S6s quite happily. But it's about freeing you up from that technical shit every time. And I think that's where it's that knowing your place thing. It's like, I don't want to have, there's a point where right brain has to take over and I just want to be creative.
Yeah.
Hence putting the screen off to one side and going, "I don't want to see you. I just want to listen." And I want to be able to balance two things together. So I think it's really important understanding how to make things work for you, but also still being open-minded enough to use anything. It's like, I couldn't find my bloody Rode podcasting mic. So I've got a 58 here. It's like, you know, it works.
Yeah.
It's still a transducer, and unfortunately for everybody, you can still hear me. I am going through a lovely SSL preamp. It's not a lovely SSL preamp. It's a 2+. It's the only interface that I can use with this laptop. Nobody cares.
Don't tell anyone, but I'm just plugging that lav from Rode straight into the MacBook Pro, and I have all of that. All of those are very nice fancy preamps, and I have, of course, the console.
Yeah,
but I mean,
nobody cares. It's really funny. Was it Sinatra said nobody's going to go down the road humming the sound of a preamp?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's like, that's where you've got to just realize, don't dismiss technology. Always strive. Make sure you can hear the differences. But I think what it comes down to, and I think this goes back to the thing about getting the guitarist involved in the choice of which speaker to put the mic on, is they've got to be comfortable. It's with the consoles. If you are comfortable with what you see in front of you, you're going to be a happy bunny. If something's annoying you, you won't be able to get it out of your head. It'll niggle you. So I would never force a guitarist, unless their guitar is so badly set up, and I do have those. I never force them to any of my guitars, which are beautifully set up. I've done it once where the guy brought an 8-string in and we couldn't intonate it because the bridge would have needed moving. So I said, "Do you mind trying my Variax? And we'll make it we'll get it tuned as an 8-string." And he loved it. And it was better because it held tuning better and everything. And it was nice of him to play. But whatever anybody wants to play is what they use. With Ronnie James Dio, he loved to see an 87 in front of him, and a Neumann 87. It was probably the last mic I would have ever chosen for him because it just accentuated everything that was gritty and nasally and horrible about his voice. But you know what? He performed to it. Yeah. And a bit of EQ. And anyway, you need it to be like that when you've got Iommi's guitars next to it. But whatever made Ronnie comfortable was what we would use. And I think that's the thing that you have to realize. You've got to dump the ego. You've got to make it so that the artist is getting that place they feel comfortable, because they've got a hard fucking job. You put them in front of an audience, it's even harder, because then the nerves come out.
No, and no gear is making music, right?
No.
I mean, they just carry it. Sometimes they embellish it in the best case. But it's not. That's not where the music is. The music is in the body of the guys who's making music. So I totally agree with you. We want to. I mean, that's a challenge for us, product designers. We want products that, of course, achieve a mission, but we also want them to. I mean, when we are lucky, to become to inspire the musician, and to bring them to maybe some place where they didn't even think they could go. And that's, I think, when we succeed. Of course, that's a big ambition, but I think we succeed when we actually let you go to a place where you never thought about going, or you didn't think you could. And that's when that happens. And that's what you mentioned with Tony, like being able to use his amp in a situation where, well, it would have been too loud. So now he can use it. That's when I think we actually do our jobs.
Yeah. Well, it was amazing. We sort of the Reload 2 came in just after he left the studio for the day, and I was like, so. I came home because it was like, deliver it. Yes, please. I'm 15 minutes away and it's pissing with rain and someone might steal it, but I need this. I took it back to the studio and we've got these little TC Electronic wiretap pedals, which are basically riff recorders. And I've got him, Tony, in a box. So plug it into the front of the amp and it's his guitar. And we put it in and we put the box up, and it was like, the Reload 2, and it was like, wow, fuck. And then we pulled the cables, and it's like, that's brilliant. There's no different. That's awesome. Right, I'm comfortable. Right, what if we turn it down? It just sounds great. And I've got Steve Pryor there, who is Brian May and Tony's tech. He does work with Gilmour as well. So he's there. He's going, this is really good. Simon from Laney's there, and he's going, it's astonishing, because you guys have done Laney stuff on that little LA studio. So he's like, this is really cool. Wow. So I said, I think we'll put it in Angelic. Tony walks in, played it. He goes, that sounds really good. And he looked at the amp and he goes, well, that should be louder than that. Turn it up there. And he goes, oh, bloody hell, that's way too loud. Turn it back down. He goes, I'm getting all of the feedback I want, all of the sustain. It sounds like me. And that was it. That's all you need. It gave him the confidence that it was like, it wasn't fucking the sound up.
That's awesome. I'm so pleased that worked out well for them.
Yeah. Oh, that was brilliant. It was, I mean, you worked. I think you stole one off Guillaume, didn't you?
Yeah. It was very touch and go at points. Seeing if we could get you one, but no, it was super awesome.
Honestly,
so it got over there.
Do you know? I so many people were like, "What the fuck is? How are you getting that?" And the other thing is, they were on monitors. Nobody else on that gig were allowed monitors. They were all in ears. There was no side fills. There was nothing. So the fact that we were able to treat his sound without any spill from anything was just like, is a dream for me.
Yeah,
it was a dream for front of house as well.
Yeah, I bet it was.
No Aussie going through Tony's mics.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was brilliant. So thank you for that, because it was it saved. It saved the gig, kind of did, but it saved my job, because it was like I had utmost confidence from the first day we were in at Flyby Night that once I dialed it in and we'd got front of house and record and monitors all go, great. That was it. I'd never touched it again.
There we go. That seems like the perfect place to end this live stream.
But, it hasn't worked since, but No, let me just say that we're using it in the studio, and I'm finding sounds so much quicker because of it. That's because wonderful. Kempers are brilliant. We've used a Kemper for so long, but when it's just not quite working because he's changed over to a P90 or he's gone to an old JD and you just need to dial something in, it's instant. and then you just change the mic balance. It's great. So,
well, Mike, thank you so much for taking the
you.
time out of your busy
Pleasure.
schedule to talk to us. It's goodbye from me.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Well, yes, I have a kid to pick up, so yeah, we need to go. And by the way, no technical issues. I mean,
That was incredible.
Apart from Ross just disappearing a couple times.
Oh yeah,
it happens. It happens.
yeah.
Part of it.
That cheap camera he's using.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks to everyone for joining in.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'll see you in about a month's time. Thanks.